Welcome back everyone to Behind the Arc Basketball on YouTube. This is the video you've all been waiting for. I put a ton of work into this video right here. This video is my first edition of my college basketball way too early top 25 predictions for the 2020-21 season, which I'm recording in May. I plan on releasing an additional rankings video next month in the month of June, after the NBA Draft Deadline, and then I'll have a few more rankings videos as we get closer to the start of the college basketball season. So before we get into my top 25 rankings in more detail, I will give you the rundown here of the 15 teams that just missed my rankings at the top 25 from number 40 to number 26. So we'll take a look at these teams right here. Start off with number 40 on the list, as that is Georgia Tech. Number 39 is Oklahoma. 38 is Illinois, 37 is Ole Miss, at 36 is Seton Hall, 35 is LSU, UConn at 34, 33 is Arkansas, 32 is Arizona State, 31 is Providence, number 30 is Michigan, 29 is Florida, Richmond at 28, Oklahoma State at number 27, and number 26 goes the Indiana Hoosiers. So now, without any further ado, let's get to it right here as we'll go through my top 25 ranking in detail for everybody right now. So we'll start off at number 25 on the list, as this goes out to the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, as they were one of the big surprises from this past season for college basketball. They made history in 2020 for Rutgers by cracking the AP Top 25 poll for the first time since 1979, which now leaves Oregon State with the longest AP Top 25 drought dating back to 1990. Not only did Rutgers have making the top 25 poll in mind, but also they had in mind making the 2020 NCAA tournament. Unfortunate that wasn't able to happen here because March Madness was canceled due to COVID-19. In 2021, though, the Scarlet Knights, they have a second chance right back at it. Hopefully, if the 2021 NCAA tournament does happen, Rutgers will be getting back their top two scorers with guards Ron Harper Jr. and Geo Baker. Also, the Scarlet Knights landing a four-star top 50 recruit with Cliff Amarui, who happens to be the highest-ranked recruit for Rutgers in 12 years. If all goes well here for the Scarlet Knights, they should be dancing come March for the 2021 tournament. Now we'll take a look here at number 24 on the list, as this goes out to the Louisville Cardinals. So I'm not going to talk about the allegations from early May about Louisville, still keeping them in the top 25 as of now. The Cardinals, though, lost a ton of pieces this offseason, as Louisville will lose 6 players. They'll have 0 starters back, but however, losing your top 4 scorers from last season doesn't mean that the Cardinals will be terrible. Head coach Chris Mack, he worked the transfer wire tremendously here in the offseason, as they benefited. The Cardinals will be bringing into Louisville Carlik Jones and Charles Minlend, both transfers, as Jones was one of the most sought-out transfers in the offseason here for 2020. He was Big South Player of the Year in 2020 for Radford, and he averaged just over 20 points per game this past season and 5.5 assists per game for Radford. Another player here is Charles Minlend. Minlend averaged 14.4 points per game for San Francisco, as he improved as well towards the end of last season. They're also going to get some key players here in the rotation for the Cardinals, having back center Malik Williams, sophomore guards David Johnson and Samuel Williamson should be taking a step forward for both of these players. Johnson and Williamson, they have both shown basically a small sample size last season of having future breakout potential. And Williamson, he had a career-high 14 points shooting, 5 for 6 from the floor this past season against Clemson, while David Johnson, he had a stellar game against Duke, 17 points in the first half of that game last season. Now we'll take a look here at number 23 on the list, as this goes out to the Oregon Ducks. So the big question is, who will be replacing Peyton Pritchard for this upcoming season as point guard? That is the huge question there for Oregon, as Peyton Pritchard, the All-American, 4-year starter for the Ducks, and they lose him. It's going to be a massive replacement there, trying to fill Pritchard's shoes. But heading into the season, Dana Altman did a terrific job working the transfer wire once again here for the Oregon Ducks. They'll be bringing in a transfer from UNLV, grad transfer for Armorari Hardy, who is the older brother of Jalen Hardy, projected to be a top 5 recruit in the 2021 class. The Ducks will also get a transfer from Rutgers as well, Eugene Amarui, who averaged just under 14 points per game and over 7 rebounds per game with Rutgers in 2018-2019. And also a third transfer coming in from Duquesne. His name is Eric Williams Jr. Oregon's perimeter, though, it's still intact there. Should be solid for this upcoming season, as they'll be bringing back Chris Duarte and Will Richardson. Chandler Lawson will be back as well. He started 12 games as a freshman. And also the big man looks to be headed back to Oregon as well. N'Faly Dante for his sophomore year, as well as Addison Patterson and CJ Walker. They are all expected to come back and should be able to improve next season for the Oregon Ducks. So somebody just needs to break out on the roster here. And my guess of that breakout player potential for this upcoming season will be Will Richardson, but we'll see how this goes here. But Dana Altman did a terrific job bringing in some key transfers here in the offseason. Now we'll take a look at number 22 on the list. First mid-major going down with St. Louis on the list right here for the Billikens. So bold prediction by me going with St. Louis over Richmond. Richmond appears to be currently the favorite, according to a lot of basketball analysts here in the A-10 for next season, as Richmond should be retaining their starting five, but I'm going to go a different route. St. Louis possibly could retain their starting five as well. I'm going to give the Billikens some love here in number 22. This team should be a 25-plus win team this upcoming season. St. Louis closed off this past season on a red-hot 5-game winning streak. The Billikens also have the chance to retain all 5 starters from last season. Both of their 3-year starters, Jordan Goodwin and center Hassan French, they both announced that they'll be going through the NBA's pre-draft process, but they could possibly come back for their senior season. Both of these players, Goodwin and French, averaged a double-double and both ranked number 1 and number 2 in the A-10 this past season with 10.4 rebounds per game, both respectively. Also heading back for his senior year will be Javonte Perkins, a forward for St. Louis. He averaged 20.8 points per game during the final 7 games of last season for the Billikens. Point guard Yuri Collins, he'll be back as well for his second season, as he led all freshmen this past year in college basketball in assists per game. And also should be coming back from injury is Gibson Jimerson, a guard for St. Louis, as he suffered a foot injury back in non-conference play, played 10 games last season. And also Jimmy Bell should factor in as a key piece in the rotation for this upcoming season as he improves in his second year for St. Louis. So do not sleep on the Billikens for this upcoming season. This team looks like they could be a bracket buster come March in the NCAA tournament. I've got them at number 22. Now we'll take a look here on number 21 on the list, as this goes out to the West Virginia Mountaineers, as they look to basically put the last month of basketball right behind them as they struggle to close out the season. But a lot of future potential here in this young rosters. They should be able to continue to improve for this upcoming season here under head coach Bob Huggins. West Virginia will be retaining 4 out of their 5 starters. Their leading scorer and rebounder, Oscar Tshiebwe, he'll be back as well. He nearly averaged a double-double as a freshman. And the Mountaineers, they're going to be one of the toughest teams, by the way, this upcoming season to compete with on the rebounding boards. There's Tshiebwe and Derek Culver, who are both in the top 5 in the Big 12 Conference, and rebounds per game are back for West Virginia. The big question for this upcoming season is, can West Virginia improve that 3-point shooting percentage, as they were dead last among all power conference teams this past season, shooting the 3 ball from behind the arc, as they shot the ball really low at 28.6% from 3-point range. That is something that they'll have to work on and boost up a ton for this upcoming season. Now we'll move on here. Number 20 on the list goes out to the UCLA Bruins. What a turnaround for head coach Mick Cronin, first season heading from Cincinnati over to UCLA this past season. They start out under Mick Cronin with an 8-9 record, but what a turnaround as the Bruins had this past season as they won their last 7 out of 8 games. Their leading scorer for the Bruins, Chris Smith, declared for the NBA draft. He might head back, though, to UCLA for this upcoming season. In early May, the Bruins' leading rebounder, Jalen Hill, announced that he would come back for this season for the Bruins, so big news there. And also, UCLA should have at least 4 out of their starting 5 back next season, the 5th one being pending with Chris Smith with his NBA draft decision. Also, they did land a 5-star recruit for a time here. His name was Dacian Nix, but he did announce in late April that he would decommit from UCLA to join the NBA G League. But still, without Nix in the mix for UCLA, the Bruins should be able to still have a solid season, as this young roster should continue to build and only should be able to get better. Now we'll take a look here at another team that got better towards the end stages of the season, the Texas Longhorns at number 19 on the list. Everything right here laid out on the table for Texas for this upcoming season. There's going to be a major problem if the Longhorns land an NIT bid and not an NCAA tournament bid under Shaka Smart in 2021. Everything is here for the potential of Texas. They'll be bringing back 12 players from last season's team, 11 of those players started at least one game last season. The Longhorns ended this past season on a high note, going 5-1 in their final 6 games. They just need to put those pieces together, basically, and they need to find a star in their team. Well, the star could be this player. Freshman, 5-star recruit Greg Brown, who is coming in, committed late April to Texas. This is the season here Longhorn fans have been waiting for. Anything less than an NCAA tournament bid next season would basically mean most likely the end of the Shaka Smart career or era at Texas. Now take a look here at number 18 on the list. This one goes out to the Ohio State Buckeyes. So Ohio State suffered some pretty big losses in the offseason, losing their leading scorer, leading rebounder, Kayla Wesson, as he decided to go to the NBA draft. His brother Andre Wesson won't be back due to graduation. Also, a lot of players transferring out like DJ Carton, Luther Muhammad, and Alonzo Gaffney. But that left 5 spots to fill in the offseason for Ohio State. But head coach Chris Holtmann, he did a terrific job here, working that transfer pool during the offseason here, ending up getting a solid grad transfer, 6'8" forward, Seth Towns from Harvard, who averaged 16 points per game back in 2017-18 when healthy. He can be a difference maker in the court. Also, Ohio State adding in another transfer, Justice Suing from California, along with a third transfer in Abel Porter from Utah State, as these players look to help out the Buckeyes a ton for this upcoming season. It's going to be a tough task. The biggest question about here for Kayla Wesson, try to replace that production from this past season without Wesson anymore on the roster. That's going to be a huge task here for Ohio State. But to pick up a transfer saved this team in the offseason as they catapulted right back into the top 25. Now we'll take a look here. Number 17 in the rankings list goes out to the Stanford Cardinals. So this ranking here is with the assumption of this player, Tyrell Terry, will be back to Stanford for this upcoming season. If Tyrell Terry does come back, Stanford will be able to retain their entire starting 5. Oscar Da Silva will be back as well. He's the leading scorer this past season for the Cardinal. And also, they're going to add in a 5-star impact freshman here with Zaire Williams coming in next season for Stanford. So heading into next season here for Stanford, the only hope is that they can finally snap that NCAA tournament drought, which goes all the way back to 2014 for the Cardinal, and they do have a good opportunity to do that, and they have an even better opportunity if Tyrell Terry does come back to Stanford for next season for his sophomore year. Now we'll take a look here. Number 16 on the list going out to the Houston Cougars, as the Cougars only losing 2 players in the offseason here. One to graduation with Chris Harris Jr. The other one, though, a major loss, just happened a couple of days ago right before I'm recording this video. Leading rebounder Nate Hinton from last season announced in mid-May that he would stay in the NBA draft, so this bumped Houston's stock down quite a bit of spots in my rankings. Day'Ron Giroux, he also is testing the NBA draft waters. He could possibly come back next season, though, for Houston, but if all goes according to plan here for the Cougars, Houston will be getting back at least their top 5 out of 6 scorers from last season. That does include Giroux if he does come back. Houston's leading scorer, Caleb Mills, he's also going to come back for next season. Same as Quentin Grimes, who is a former transfer from Kansas. By the way, Quentin Grimes has a chance to possibly break out this upcoming season for Houston. This team can light it up solid from the perimeter, as Houston has had the best 3-point shooting percentage team in the American now for 3 straight seasons. They have a decent chance to make it 4 in a row here for the Cougars, as they're going to add in a solid 3-point shooter from Idaho. His name is Cameron Tyson, as Tyson shot the ball almost 43% from 3-point range in his 2 seasons ago at Idaho. With the loss of UConn in the American and also multiple teams in just rebuilding mode in the conference, Houston should be the clear-cut favorite as of now to win the American for this upcoming season. Now we'll take a look here. Number 15 on the list goes out to the Creighton Blue Jays. Creighton looked like a top 5 team. That was when the offseason first started, but all that changed was the leading scorer, Tyshawn Alexander. He announced that he would enter into the NBA draft and not come back to Creighton, but still the Blue Jays should be solid and should be able to light it up from the perimeter once again this season. They'll be retaining their top 2 perimeter shooters with Marcus Zagorowski and Mitch Ballack, who ranked number 2 and number 3 in the Big East in 3-point shooting percentage. and also Creighton. They're just loaded with guards in the team. The only problem is who's going to play center. That's the problem here, finding the big man on the team here. They got a couple players in mind. 6'11", Jacob Emerson, who did not play last season due to injury, and also the Blue Jays will add in a freshman 4-star recruit with Ryan Kalkbrenner. It's just the big question mark about who will play center for this team. They need a lot of help inside, but as far as what they can do around the perimeter, it is solid there with their three-point shooting. Now we'll move on. Number 14 on the list of my rankings goes out to the Texas Tech Red Raiders. The Red Raiders were lacking that true rebounder a couple weeks ago in the offseason, but they found a Marcus Santos Silva coming over from VCU. All he has to do now is pass his summer classes, and he will be upgraded from a sit-out transfer to play next season as a grad transfer. That will be huge there, as Santos Silva would be sliding over to the spot of Chris Clark. Clark graduated this year for Texas Tech. And also a big loss for the Red Raiders this offseason, as their leading scorer, Jamias Ramsey, did declare and head to the NBA Draft, so that's a huge loss. But anyway, they're going to get back 3 solid guards here. The number 2, 3, and 4 scorers for this upcoming season will be back with Davide Moretti, Kyler Edwards, and Terrence Shannon. Texas Tech will also bring in 2 strong recruits here, top 35 in the recruiting class for 2020 with Namari Burnett and also Micah Peavy. The Red Raiders also add in a transfer from UNLV. His name is Joel Tombaway, who averaged just under 12 points per game back in 2018-19 for the UNLV Rebels. The only thing here that's missing for Texas Tech is I feel like they just need a star player in their roster here, that go-to type of scorer without Ramsey anymore in their team. Last season, Moretti didn't really have like a massive scoring season, but he has the possibility to break out this upcoming season. Also, Kyler Edwards, he has just shown some massive improvements for Texas Tech from his first season to his second. Now, he could possibly have breakout potential as well. That's all that the Red Raiders need here, and if they do, if they find that breakout player, they can go here from number 14 up into the top 10 of my list. Now we'll take a look here, number 13, as this goes out to the Tennessee Vols. Tennessee should be right back into the rankings after a year rebuilding. Jordan Bowden's the only player with double-digit scoring figures from this past season that'll be departing Tennessee. The Vols should be able to return at least 3 starters next season out of their starting 5, which include John Fulkerson, Josiah Jordan-James, and Santiago Vescovi, all expected to come back. Their leading shot blocker from the SEC, Yves Pons, he declared for the NBA Draft, but also he could be coming back to Tennessee, as the Vols will bring in a recruiting class that's ranked inside the top 5 currently for the class of 2020. They'll be adding in 2 5-star freshman guards with Jaden Springer and Keon Johnson, along with also a key transfer from the Oregon Ducks. His name is Victor Bailey Jr. Head coach Rick Barnes, he's got a lot to look forward to this upcoming season here. This team looks deep from top to bottom on the roster here for the Tennessee Vols. I've got them at number 13 on the list. Now we'll take a look here. Number 12 on the list goes out to the North Carolina Tar Heels. They should be right back in the rankings after just an unfortunate season of disappointment. Worst record for Roy Williams in his 17th season as a UNC head coach. But they should be back to business this upcoming season. UNC, they do lose 5 players, the most notable one being Cole Anthony as their point guard. But here we go, coming in a really strong recruiting class here with freshmen. North Carolina adding in 3 5-star recruits in the mix. Caleb Love should be coming in as point guard. He's a top 20 recruit alongside with 2 freshman bigs, Day'Ron Sharp and Walker Kessler, as Love should be able to slide into that spot for Cole Anthony from this past season. Garrison Brooks, he'll be back for his senior season. He looks to have a monster senior season for North Carolina. He averaged 16.8 points per game and 8.5 rebounds per game this past season for UNC. And also just that size down low and on the boards. That's going to be a problem for a lot of opponents this upcoming season with the size of Bacot and Brooks, as Armando Bacot will be back as well for his sophomore season alongside the 2 5-star freshmen Day'Ron Sharp and Walker Kessler. This team is going to be tough to compete against on the boards once again this season for North Carolina. They should continue to improve, and they should be able to put up consistent basis here with these rankings and keep up inside the top 25 on a consistent basis. So UNC have got them at number 12 on the list. Now we'll move on. Number 11, sticking it with the ACC right now as it goes to the Florida State Seminoles. So I feel like Florida State, according to other analysts, projections is just way too low how other analysts have put them here. I'm putting them at number 11 on the list here because never count out Leonard Hamilton. He is just one heck of a head coach. Hamilton led the Seminoles this past season to their first ever ACC title, top 5 finish nationally with a record of 26-5. The problem will be replacing Trent Forrest, though. They're going to lose their top 2 scorers, Devin Vassell and Trent Forrest. Trent Forrest is a 2-year starter at point for the Seminoles, but Leonard Hamilton's going to have to do some soul searching to find that next player there, possibly down towards the bottom of the lineup from this past season. He could probably find a player like Anthony Polite or Raekwon Evans to take over Forrest's position, but Florida State also losing some players over as well, like Patrick Williams and Dominic Olejniczak to graduation, but still, even losing 4 players from the roster, I feel like the pieces are still going to be there for this upcoming season. As Florida State, the year prior in the 2019 offseason, Fiondu Kabengele and Terrence Mann both left the Seminoles, and they both led the team in scoring number 1 and number 2 during that season, right before the offseason. So Devin Vassell, he made tremendous progress from his freshman season to his sophomore season. He went from being the number 9 scorer freshman year to number 1. I feel like Florida State here is going to be, once again, the deepness of this team from this past season will help. They had 9 players who averaged over 4 points per game. Heading back to the Seminoles will be MJ Walker, Malik Osborne, and Raekwon Gray. And also 5 additional players will return from last season's roster. The big player here to know, though, is a 5-star freshman coming in, top 5 recruit, Scotty Barnes, coming in for Florida State. This team right here should be able to keep up with the front runners in the ACC, being Duke, UNC, and Virginia. And speaking of ACC, we'll continue on the trend, 3 in a row here for the conference, as number 10 goes out to the Duke Blue Devils. So Duke will lose a ton this offseason. Players departing, there's 7 of them from the roster, as they'll be losing their top 3 scorers with Vernon Carey, Trey Jones, and Cassius Stanley. Heading back to Duke, though, is these 2 players for their sophomore season, Matthew Hurt and Wendell Moore. These 2 players right here have to take the next step if Duke wants to be at the top of these rankings. Also coming back senior year for Jordan Goldwire, and also big name recruits coming in for this upcoming season here, playing for Coach K, as these are the recruits coming in. 5-star recruits, you got 3 of them for Duke. Jalen Johnson, Jeremy Roach, and DJ Stewart all coming in as freshmen. And then also 3 4-star recruits coming in with Jamin Brakefield, Mark Williams, and Henry Coleman. So this team for Duke, young roster, will be reliant on the experience this upcoming season of Hurt and Moore, as we'll see if they can take that next step. Now we'll take a look here. Number 9 on my rankings goes out to the Michigan State Spartans. Here's the big question, though, for Sparty, is whether Xavier Tillman will be coming back next season for Michigan State. The hope is that he can come back there for Spartans fans, but we'll see how that goes. His status is still up in the air right now, whether he goes to the NBA or if he does come back. Also, major loss losing Cassius Winston. They're going to have to find a new point guard, as that's another question here for head coach Tom Izzo. Foster Loyer, he was supposed to be the one basically to replace Cassius Winston right after he left, but no, that really hasn't happened here, as Loyer hasn't been able to take the appropriate steps up. The man who could possibly take the keys over at point could be the Rocket here, Mark Rocket Watts, as Watts played at shooting guard this past season, but he has the chance to be a breakout candidate this upcoming season here for Michigan State. He averaged 17.8 points per game during the last 4 games of the season. Along with Rocket Watts coming back here for Sparty, they should be able to retain at least 2 other starters with their forwards, Aaron Henry and Malik Hall. Also a much-needed transfer coming in here from Virginia, Joey Hauser, who shot the ball 42.5% from 3-point range for Marquette back in 2018-19. So there's still a lot of stuff that's uncertain with Michigan State's roster right now, but as we turn the corner into June, we should have a much better picture of what this roster will look like in this upcoming season. Now we'll move on here. Number 8 on the list goes out to the Big Blue Nation, the Kentucky Wildcats here. So Kentucky losing basically everybody from this past season's team. They're going to lose their top 6 scorers from a team that went with a 25-6 record. But if there's any head coach that can put completely new pieces together and start from scratch, it is this one right here, Coach Cal, Kentucky. As John Calipari has his work cut out for him for this upcoming season. One of the youngest rosters in all college basketball. The good thing, though, is Kentucky brings in the top-ranked recruiting class here. 7 top 100 recruits coming in for Kentucky. They are going to add in multiple 5-star recruits here. Top 10 with B.J. Boston, Terrence Clark, and also adding in a point guard with Devin Askew. Also a power forward with Isaiah Jackson, and another one with Lance Ware, and then a small forward with Cameron Fletcher. So a lot of recruits there, as well as acquiring a major player here in the transfer pool with 7-foot Wake Forest center Olivier Sarr. The only question happens to be is whether Sarr will be eligible for this upcoming season here. If he does, this team looks like they could possibly be a national contender. I've got them at number 8 for now here, but it all depends on how good these freshmen are. They're going to bring in a really, really good top-ranked recruiting class here. Also coming in a grad transfer from Creighton with Davian Mintz. And also, basically the only player coming back for this upcoming season happens to be Ford Keon Brooks, as he'll be back for his sophomore season. But they got the number 1 ranked recruiting class here. A lot of new faces here with a bunch of potential NBA draft prospects for the 2021 NBA draft here for Kentucky. I've got them right here at number 8 on the list. Now we'll take a look here on number 7 as we move over to the Big Ten. What a turnaround by Wisconsin. Greg Gard named Big Ten Coach of the Year for 2020 as Wisconsin started out this past season 5-5 record. But these players, basically almost every single one of them will be back. They'll only be losing one player to graduation for the Badgers. That is their number 6 scorer with Brevin Pritzel. Coming back for Wisconsin is all these players in the starting lineup. Nate Reavers, Aleem Ford, Demetric Trice, and Brad Davison at the guard position for those two. And also a center with Micah Potter. He'll be back for the Badgers as well, as he averaged just under 14 points per game. Shot the ball 57% from the floor during his last 5 games of the season. Wisconsin's experience here with their 6 seniors on the roster, this is going to be huge to their success for this upcoming season. I've got them here at number 7. Now we'll make our way back over to the ACC once again for the last ACC team on the list. This one goes out to the Virginia Cavaliers at number 6. Virginia's lack of firepower offensively should be answered with this player coming in for this upcoming season. Sam Hauser, who was a sit-out transfer last season, but played at Marquette during the 2018-19 season. Hauser will be replacing Mamadi Diakite, as he averaged just under 15 points per game and 7.2 rebounds per game at Marquette, while shooting over 40% from behind the arc. Other than Diakite, the Cavaliers only lose one other player here from their team in the offseason, which is Braxton Key. Still, Virginia should be one of the toughest defenses in all college basketball. They'll be retaining their three starters from last season. Heading back to the Cavaliers will be Kihei Clark, Tomas Wolantunsai, and also Jay Huff, who did enter his name into the NBA draft, but is expected to come back to Virginia. Also coming in, some recruits here, as they get 2 4-star recruits coming in for the Cavaliers for Tony Bennett. His name is Jabri Ador-Rahim coming in, top 35 recruit, and also Reese Beekman inside the top 50. If the Cavaliers can translate last season's defense and just improve that offense now, since they're able to get the transfer over from Marquette with Sam Hauser, this team looks like they could be inside another reigning national champion status here once again, as they try to look to keep that defending national champion status and put it for the year 2021. Now we'll take a look here. We're inside the top 25 here, everybody. Moving on to number 5. As we're inside at number 5. Goes out to Villanova. So here's the big thing for Villanova. The question mark is with their leading scorer Saddiq Bey, as he announced that he'll be going through the NBA draft process to see if he'll stay in the draft or come back to Villanova. Now I predict right now that Saddiq Bey will be heading to the NBA draft for good. If Bey does head back to Villanova though, Villanova would move up in my list from number 5 to possibly number 1, as their 3-point shooting would be a rocket sky high there. If Saddiq Bey does come back, he led the Big East Conference this past season from 3-point range and 3-point shooting percentage. But Villanova coming back, 4 starters out of their starting 5, all averaged just over 10 points per game this past season with Colin Gillespie, Jermaine Samuels, Justin Moore, Jeremiah Robinson Earl. Those 4 starters will be back alongside a couple other key players in the roster, like Cole Swider, who will be coming back for his junior season, and also a key transfer coming in for Villanova. His name is Caleb Daniels from Tulane, who averaged just under 17 points per game during the 2018-19 season for the Green Wave. So Villanova, they're going to be solid defensively next season. The only thing is, how efficient will they be from 3-point range when they do, if they do lose Saddiq Bey, as he was the leading 3-point shooter in the Big East Conference, as Villanova happens to be my list at number 5. Now we'll take a look here, number 4. This one goes out to the Iowa Hawkeyes. Huge season coming up this season for Iowa here. The big question lies with this player, Luka Garza, possible potential 2021 National Player of the Years, Garza averaged 23.9 points per game and 9.8 rebounds per game this past season. He ranked number 5 in college basketball in points scored per game. So the big question is whether Luka Garza will be coming back for his senior season. I'm predicting right now that Garza will. If he does indeed come back to Iowa, he will be the preseason pick by many to win National Player of the Year. The Hawkeyes, they still have a really solid lineup here. Should have one of the most explosive lineups here in all college basketball, starting 5 scoring-wise for next season. Luka Garza, if he does come back, he'll be joining Joe Wieskamp, CJ Frederick, Joe Toussaint, and Connor McCaffrey as well. Also, they're going to get back Jordan Bohannon, who was able to get eligibility for an extra season as a senior, as Bohannon will be back. Also, CJ Frederick, as a freshman, he led the Big Ten Conference in three-point shooting percentage. He's going to be back for his sophomore season as well. If this Iowa team here can just tighten up defensively, this Hawkeyes team will just be the real deal, and they could possibly land themselves their first ever national title. This team right here is going to give opponents just nightmares next season when trying to take them on defensively. This offense is just solid right now if they do keep Luka Garza for next season. Now we'll move on. We have 3 teams remaining. Sticking it to the Midwest, this one goes to the Kansas Jayhawks at number 3. So they did suffer 2 major hits this offseason, losing their leading scorer Devon Dotson to the NBA draft. Also, Yadoko Azubuike, their big man, graduated from Kansas. But coming back here, this team should be still one of the top defenses in all college basketball. Heading back to the Jayhawks will be Marcus Garrett, Ochai Agbaji, and David McCormick. Garrett was coming off a Defensive Player of the Year award in 2020. He'll be one of the top picks in the preseason, of course, to do that, possibly repeat again in 2021. They also have on the team, once again, Christian Braun. For his sophomore season, he showed flashes of star potential from three-point range this past season, and also coming back for his sophomore year, Tristan Enaruna, and also Silvio De Sousa coming back to the lineup as well for the Kansas Jayhawks. They're also going to add in a 5-star recruit here at shooting guard. His name is Bryce Thompson, so Kansas still loaded here. They're probably going to be one of the more undersized team in college basketball, but very loaded on the wings, as they're going to have a deep roster still for this upcoming season. And now we have 2 teams remaining, as this one goes out at number 2 to the Gonzaga Bulldogs. A lot of next roster for next season. Basically, a lot of it still in flux right now for Gonzaga, though, as the Bulldogs will be losing at least 3 players with Killian Tilly, Adamon Gilder, and Ryan Woolridge. Players that are up, basically, with a question mark here, are their number 1, 2, and 4 scorers from this past season for Gonzaga. These players, Filip Petrusev, Corey Kispert, and Joel Ayayi. All 3 of these players declare for the NBA draft, but all 3 do have a chance to come back this upcoming season for Gonzaga. If all 3 of them do come back, I've got them ranked here at number 2 for now. If some of them, or all of them, do leave, though, then Gonzaga would drop in these rankings. But even if all 3 of these players do go to the NBA draft with Ayayi, Kispert, and Petrusev, this Gonzaga team will still be the runaway favorite, of course, in the WCC for this upcoming season. No shocker there. Power forward Drew Timme, he'll be back for his 2nd season for Gonzaga. And also, a key freshman coming in, top 10 recruit, 5-star point guard, Jalen Suggs, to lead the team for the Bulldogs for this upcoming season. Also, they'll be adding in 2 4-star recruits with Dominic Harris and Julian Strother. At most, this Gonzaga team will probably lose at most 4 games this season. Wouldn't shock me if they had 30-plus wins once again for the Gonzaga Bulldogs. And that remains one team on the list here. At number 1 on the rankings during the month of May here in the offseason, I've got the Baylor Bears topping my rankings. Still, they got question marks for this upcoming season. Jared Butler, who averaged 16 points per game this past season, and Maseo Teague, both of these players with Butler and Teague, announced that they'll be testing the NBA draft waters. They could possibly return to Baylor, though. This Baylor Bears team, they spent 5 weeks this past season ranked at number 1 at the top. The Bears will be losing in the offseason their leading rebounder, Freddie Gillespie. Also at guard will be Devontae Bandu leaving the team, but they're still going to return at least 2 of their starters from the starting 5 with Mark Vital and Davian Mitchell. Mark Vital was a finalist for 2020 Defensive Player of the Year. And also Baylor will be adding in 2 4-star recruits as well with Dane Danja inside the top 50, and also L.J. Cryer, also a key transfer coming in from Presbyterian. His name is Adam Flagler, who averaged just under 16 points per game back in 2018-19. if Butler and Teague do stay, Baylor will be at the top of these rankings, and they'll have a major boost in scoring production if these two players do stay and don't go to the NBA draft, as I've got Baylor, as of now, number 1 ranked on the list. So that's what the top 25 looks like here, everybody. That's a wrap here to my video. My first ever college basketball way too early top 25 prediction video for the 2020-21 season. This video happens to be recorded in May of 2020. I plan on releasing an updated ranking next month, in the month of June, after that NBA Draft Withdrawal Deadline, and a few more rankings as we do get closer to the start of the season. So make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Also, the big thing, ring that notification bell so you can become notified when my next ranking video does come out with the latest changes next month, if you really did enjoy this video. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, as this is Behind the Arc Basketball on YouTube.